Okay. Yeah, so thank you for the introduction, Christine. Just a brief intro about me before I get more into kind of my journey in science communication and all of that. But I'm currently a UBC student studying pharmacology and microbiology, and I'm in my third year there. And I also work at Genome BC, which is a funding agency here in BC, and I do educational videos for them as well. But that's kind of where I'm at right now. But yeah, I'll go through my journey, and then there's lots of points in time where I just want interaction from all of you. Like I've kind of prepared it like a presentation, but just interrupt me at any time if you have any questions or suggestions or ideas. And I understand some of you might have more experience making videos than I do. I'm trained all by myself. So yeah, this is a really informal presentation, or at least that's how I would like it to run. So yeah, just interrupt me anytime if you have any questions or anything at all. Yeah, so today's talk is going to be about making STEM videos. And the reason that I have kind of come to do this talk is because I've been creating science videos for around 8 years now. So I started when I was 12 years old, and I'm almost 20. So yeah, it's been quite a long journey in making science videos, and I thought that it would be interesting to share my experience with you. But again, I've never been trained in actually creating science videos. It was something that I did on my own, but I do have a science background. So the video side is kind of secondary to the science side, which I think is kind of the opposite of what you were saying, Brianna, but it would be interesting to compare notes. Right, so any questions before we get started, or does that sound good to everybody? So my very first slide is I just wanted to give you guys some space to write down any expectations that you had for this workshop, just in case there's anything that you'd like me to specifically address, just so I can make sure that we get that talked about. Yeah, so if you guys could annotate, I'll just give you like maybe 2 minutes or 1 minute to just write down something that you would like out of this workshop. And if you don't want to write it in on the slide, you can also write it in the chat. Okay, great. Is that everybody? I'm just trying to check. Okay, I think that's everyone now. So it's good. It's good to have an idea of what you guys are looking for. So I see there's lots of mixing medias, making entertaining educational videos, scripting, the ideas, promotion, pace. Okay, these are all great suggestions. And I'm just going to actually take a screenshot of the chat if that's all right with everybody, just so I can keep a record of what was expected, just so we can compare it to what happened at the end, if that's all right. Perfect. Okay. So with that, I will get started. So before I wanted to get into kind of my video experience and how I make videos, I just wanted to talk briefly about kind of my journey into science, why I decided to go into the field of science, just because a lot of the work that I do in my videos is relating sort of my journey in my career in science to, I guess, ideas or topics that others could also be interested or take away from. So I just thought I'd introduce myself through this briefly to begin. So the reason that I decided to go into science is because my younger brother was diagnosed with nephrotic syndrome when I was 12 and he was 8 years old. So nephrotic syndrome, for those of you who do not know, it's a potentially debilitating kidney disease with little to no treatment options. Luckily for him, he has amazing doctors. He actually goes to the BC Children's Hospital here in Vancouver as well now to follow his condition. But just understanding as a 12-year-old that there was conditions that you didn't have treatments for kind of just completely blew my mind. And I think it really sent me down the path of deciding to pursue pharmacology and medicine as something that I was interested in. So that's kind of why I decided to pursue science in the first place. And then because I was 12 years old, I decided that the best place that I was going to learn everything about science, and I thought that, you know, you could just like learn all of science all at once at 12. Anyway, so I decided to pop onto YouTube. And here's a picture of me in my very first science lab, my very first time wearing a lab coat when I was 12. And I think it was my first time looking in a microscope. I was so excited. So I actually lived in Singapore, and it was an event put on by their, I guess, equivalent to Science World back there. But yeah, so these two mediums, so both YouTube as well as like museum outreach, really sparked my interest in science. And then from there, I also had the opportunity to like look at other online resources and educational resources such as Khan Academy, which I still use to this day. And I actually used to study for my MCAT this past summer, as well as Crash Course, which is another YouTube online video series that I was really obsessed with and I fell in love with. But both Khan Academy and Crash Course are more concrete and more sort of formal educational outreach videos. And I also wanted to look at sort of other examples, maybe more entertaining or more fun videos. And also, sorry, I don't know if you can see the notifications that are popping on my screen. No? Okay, perfect. I've got a spam caller, so just making sure you can't see that. All right. So the first maybe non-traditional or non-conventional YouTuber that I came across was the Brain Scoop. And the Brain Scoop is a video channel that's put on by the Chicago Field Museum, but it was actually started by this science YouTuber named Emily Grassley. And so she was originally an artist, and then she sort of transitioned into the museum curator world, and eventually into like specimen preparation, as well as like science communication videos. And she was a really big mentor for me in deciding that I kind of could do something unconventional in the sciences, so I didn't have to come from a science background to pursue science. And I could also integrate my other interests. So she integrated a lot of her art interests into her science video production, and I ended up doing the same, which I'll show you in a bit. But I think when I was 15, I got the chance to have like a Skype call with her, which was just like the most amazing experience in my life at the time, just because she was one of my idols and mentors growing up in the sciences, and especially in science video communications. My other role model is Alex Danis, and at the time when she first started making videos, she was a student, I think, studying for her PhD in genetics, and then now she has a PhD, and she kind of, throughout her whole journey and her whole career, she was constantly posting updates, kind of showing that she was not only a student, but also communicating science. So this was a really big inspiration to me, that I didn't necessarily need to be established at where I was. I could be a student and still be creating videos, and other people would still be interested in watching them, because I was really interested in seeing her career journey. I'm just a lot younger than her, or a couple stages behind. So it was interesting to compare kind of her journey in her PhD and my journey deciding to pursue science after high school. And now that I'm in my undergrad, yeah, it's just been a cool way to compare notes and also see both of us produce videos throughout our entire kind of schooling careers and journeys. Yeah, and if you have any questions, I'm just gonna pull up the chat. I realize I haven't had that open. But yeah, I think she does do the Dino Treks shows, Emily Grassley now. I can't exactly remember. I haven't had time to watch a lot of videos recently. I wish I had more time. And yeah, Angeline.
Kind of how we got into this project.
Oh, pardon?
Sorry about that.
Okay, no worries. But yeah, Angeline, she was also, yeah, my big inspiration. So because of all of these amazing YouTubers showing me that you could be a student as well as a like woman in science in a non-conventional way, because the only examples that I've been shown like traditionally in high school were Marie Curie or these women who are incredible, but I just really couldn't see myself in. So then anyways, I decided that I was going to make my own videos. And I asked my grandmother for a microscope for my birthday. And so here's me with my like absolute favorite piece of technology ever, and I still have it and use it to this day. So it's lasted quite a while. I think a couple of the lenses are broken now, but I mean, it's been going for a good 8 years, so I don't really blame it too much. And I decided to make my very first video, which is yogurt microscope experiment, which I will show you now. But the idea was that I wasn't a professional at doing these microscope slides. Like, I think the yogurt microscope experiment I had done once before I decided I was going to film it. So it was really kind of a random decision on my part, but I was just really interested in making these videos, and I had learned how to make videos in high school, or I guess middle school, a couple of days before I did this video. And so I was just really excited about kind of the technology, but also the science. And then I created the video because of it. So I'll just show that quickly. I won't show the whole thing, but I guess you can just see sort of where I started from.
Yogurt.
And just let me know if you can hear it or not.
These are some of the materials you will need to do this experiment. You will need microscope slides, cover slips. Clean all slides and cover slips to avoid dust. A toothpick or other swab, and yogurt. A pipette and a few drops of water. Here's the procedure on how to prepare the slides. First, use your toothpick or other swab to take a sample of the yogurt. Then spread a thin layer of the yogurt onto the center of the slide. Then pipette a drop of water onto the top of the yogurt. Finally, place a cover slip on top of the water. The bacteria. Here is some footage I took whilst looking at my slides. This is medium strength under my microscope. These two are taken under the highest setting of my microscope.
Yeah, so as you can see, the production quality.
On the bottle that the yogurt came in, it said that it contained A, B.
Okay, so as you can see, the production quality isn't amazing, but it was just my very first shot at making a video. And so I was just excited to share what I had learned with the world. And I thought it was really cool that I could see the bacteria in my yogurt. And then I never ate yogurt after this as well, just because I was a little bit grossed out. But yeah, this is my very first introduction of video. And I see your comment, Leanne. So what I actually did is I took my phone, or at that time, I don't think I had a phone. I think it was probably my mom's phone, and like held it over top of the microscope eyepiece and just like held it like this and recorded and tried to stabilize my hands. And over time, I've actually gotten a lot better at doing that technique, but I've also invested in a microscope camera. So you can actually buy cameras on Amazon that you can slot in two microscopes instead of the eyepiece. If you don't want to have to like balance your phone on top of a microscope, but it's a good skill. I've used it a lot. But yeah, I hope that answers your question, Leanne, and I'll just keep going. So yeah, this video, I didn't expect anything from it. It was just sort of me shouting into the void saying that I liked science and I was just interested in it. But what happened is it started off with like 2 views and then 5 views, and then eventually it got to 70,000 views. I think now it has like 90,000 views. And so it just really blew up in a way that I didn't expect. And I know that on YouTube, that's not necessarily like a lot of views, but for me, it was just amazing that like anybody else outside of me and my family was watching my video. So this really encouraged me to continue to make YouTube videos. And so, yeah, I've been making them ever since, and I'll show you kind of my channel now and also a little bit of the evolution of what my videos have been and where they are now. So yeah, over time, like I mentioned, I was trying to develop sort of my other skills as well. So digital illustration is also something that I've been really interested in. And around the same time, I started to learn how to use Adobe Illustrator. And then I've been using it ever since as well. So here's my very first Sci-Files logo. And over time, I changed it quite a bit, learning new skills in Adobe Illustrator, and then to where it is today. I think this is from 2019, but it's the same right now. And I'm sure over time in the future, I'll change it as well. But yeah, it's just been really interesting to see myself and my career kind of grow on YouTube. And I feel like that's been really the like center of all of my experience in the sciences. So yeah, that's kind of where I've come from. And so now I thought that we could have a look at some of the processes that I go through when I'm making my videos. And if there's anything specific that you'd like to learn, I'll go through that as well. But I will just pause my slides for a second. And I guess the outline of what I was planning on showing you was kind of how I edit my videos in Final Cut Pro, a little bit of how I do my animations, and then also kind of some of the newer content on my channel. But if there's anything else you'd like to see, just let me know. But yeah, I will get going on that, if that's all right. Okay. So yeah, I just thought that first I would show you one of the newer videos that are on my channel, and also what my channel looks like today. So I know that all of you mentioned that you were wanting to do videos for different sorts of projects, but like if you are planning on trying to make like a series of videos, one of my biggest suggestions would be to try and have a consistent look to your channel. So I'm just going to share sort of what my channel looks like, and then if you have any questions, just let me know. So, okay, so yeah, this is what my channel looks like today. And as you can see, I try to keep it pretty consistent with the way that I do my thumbnails. So I've made, I think, over 100 videos now. And they all have this border just to keep it consistent. And I also think that that's a really important aspect, especially when you're trying to create a brand, especially with science videos. I think there's a lot of educational videos on YouTube, but if you have a consistent brand, they'll know that you're kind of a reputable source. So that's kind of something that I've been trying to aim to do. Yeah, and there's been different periods in my life when I've been able to make more videos, and other times where I haven't really had the capacity to make the same number. Over the summers, I try and kind of invest in making a lot of videos just because that's a time where I do have more flexibility in my schedule. Now that I'm a full-time student at UBC, it's a little bit harder to fit in video making time between all my other courses. But I try my best to like work on projects with other organizations. So for example, all of these videos that I did with vision learning and flavorful science, I did over the summer, whereas the rare genetic disease video I did with Genome BC during the year, just because that other organization was able to help me as well. So I think with videos, it's always a good idea to really plan out what your capacity is to create, because I think that there's a lot of ideas, but if you don't have the time or the resources or the help to get it done, then I mean, you could have all the great ideas in the world, but not be able to achieve any of them. So I think that SCWIST is also a really good opportunity to find those people that will be able to help you kind of facilitate creating the videos as well. So yeah, I just thought that I would show you maybe one of the videos that I recently made over the summer with another organization called Flavorful Science. And so we decided to partner on creating experiments that relate food and science.
Hello and welcome to our third
so I'm just going to play parts of this video and then we'll talk about how I made it.
Flavorful Summer of STEAM video. Today is our engineering video, and we're going to be learning how to scramble eggs inside the shells using the principles of the centripetal force. Let's start off by discussing the ingredients and materials you'll need. As always, you can find a PDF with all the information in the description below. Start by grabbing a pair of nylons or a sweater. You'll also need elastic or clips, a pot or pan, cold water, a sealable bag or Ziploc, and the main ingredient, eggs. Now let's go make some eggs. Start by placing the egg into the sealable bag. And seal it up well. Make sure you get the air out as well. Next up, add the bag to your tights or long sleeve shirt. Here I'm using an old pair of tights, but you can use a long sleeve shirt, a sweater, anything that has kind of a long tube structure. And there's a couple different ways that you can set this up, so here's a slightly different version. So here we're using a long sleeve shirt. Here we are sliding it into the sleeve and attaching it with clips or elastic bands on either side of the egg.
So I'm just going to jump ahead a bit because, I mean, unless you guys are interested in learning how to make an egg scrambled inside its shell, I don't think that's really what our workshop is about. So I'm just going to skip to the next stage. So here, or this part of the video, you saw that I was mostly filming like my hands, and then I also had a couple volunteers working with me this summer to create some of the shots. But now I'm going to move into sort of the explanation section, and you'll see the difference in how I present it.
Let's find out. So say you want to make a boiled egg. You can pick between doing it normally or scrambling it inside the shell. How we did this is we took our egg and then put it into a tube of fabric or a sweater and then tied off the ends. We then rotated it very, very rapidly until the egg had scrambled inside its shell. So the idea is that our egg was rotated in this circular path. And this happened over and over and over again, thanks to a force known as the centripetal force. The centripetal force is a force known as a center-seeking force.
So here you can see I'm sort of using, it's not really important what I'm saying, but I'll just kind of talk over it. So you can see that I'm using like animations to try and highlight my different explanations for all of the concepts that I'm discussing in the video. And this goes on for a while. And I also have those slides that separate each section of my video as well. See the chat, definitely going to. Oh, thank you. Yeah, sorry, I'm not teaching you how to make the eggs scrambled itself. It was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be, but it does work. It just took a couple tries. So that's also something that I didn't show in the video, but just a little disclaimer. Yeah, so there, I know that one of you mentioned, so I can't remember who now, but having the idea of including like a presentation as well as like videos in a single video. The way that I sort of do it is I like film all my like overtop stuff, and then I add the animations and everything like that in a separate section. So that's kind of how I differentiate between the two. Okay, do you think it's important to use animation over? So to the comment in the chat on if it's important to use animation over hand-drawn screen capture, a video, writing, and drawing, I think it depends on what you're trying to communicate. if you're talking a lot and trying to explain a complicated concept, then I think it might be beneficial to have kind of words pop up. But kind of like you could see earlier in my video, it was mostly just me showing what I was doing and then having the text below. I just used the animations at the end because I thought it was easier to communicate it. But I think that if you had a video of you doing it as well, it would also work out effectively. It kind of just depends on what you're trying to communicate. But I think we'll go to the do's and don'ts of video in a bit. But I think my philosophy is that I always like to have something that you can read on screen while you're looking at something else, just so that you have those two, because some of us are visual learners and some of us are auditory learners, and we just want to have a lot of different ways that we can communicate that information to as many people as we can. So hopefully that makes sense. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure kind of what the best ratio is, but that's what I found works for me. So I just thought that I would now walk you through kind of how I plan out my videos in the video editing software that I use, which is Final Cut Pro. And then after all of this, we'll go over a checklist of how to make a video, and then I'll assign you guys the task of coming up with video ideas. But before we get ahead of ourselves, I will just pop over to Final Cut Pro and show you what I have. And so the project that I'm going to show you is actually not released yet, so just keep it on the down low, but it's for your Science World event that's coming up pretty soon. But I just wanted to show you sort of what my timeline editing looked like. So this is the Final Cut Pro software, which you can get on a Mac, but there's also a lot of alternatives, like iMovie is a free software, or you can get like Adobe Premiere Pro. So there's lots of different options for that. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of options for Windows computers because I've only ever used a Mac computer. But I think the principles of what you're trying to communicate across are basically the same. And I don't know if anybody has experience with Windows computers and wanted to recommend some software options as well. That would be wonderful because I can't say from my own experience. But yes, the idea is that what I do is I film all of my videos either on my phone, or I do have another camera that I use. But more recently, I found that my phone is actually just as good as the other camera, and I don't have the newest phone. But I think that the technology is catching up pretty quickly, and it's pretty convenient to just film on my phone. So I do that a lot of the time as well. But I'll just film it all, and then typically what I do is I'll film and then I'll do voiceovers later, just because I find that a lot easier. If I'm filming myself, however, I do kind of use the audio from when I'm taking the video. So in this case, the audio that is in this video is also from the actual live footage. But as you can see later on in the video, I have screen recordings and slides as well. So yeah, this is for a Girls in STEAM event that's coming up at Science World later on this month. So I won't show you the video, but just kind of the ideas of how I do it. So in Final Cut Pro, a really cool thing that you can do is just add text over top of your video. So for example, here's Norbert from Flavorful Science, but we were doing a partner.
First, we want to develop an understanding that there are STEAM applications to food.
So kind of as he was mentioning each point, I would animate a little image to go with it, as well as have the text appear just in case somebody wanted to watch it, but they didn't really catch what he was saying, or just wanted a different kind of cue to stay interested in the video as well. And then, yes, there's lots of different things that you can do. Another thing that I like to do is have kind of videos. So here's me.
Forms two distinct layers. There's an oil layer and a water layer.
And then like have a close-up of the actual object. And I think this is really great to use when you're trying to communicate kind of a science concept. A lot of the times, like lots of science concepts are abstract. So instead of just talking like abstractly and having it just be a photo of you, you could jump to a more close-up photo, or maybe like an animation as well. And so that's where you could incorporate sort of the PowerPoint while you're talking. And the thing about incorporating PowerPoints in video is I think it always makes sense to kind of address the transition. So for example, here, we're talking about sort of how they can make their own kind of science projects is what this video is about.
Let's see how you could create your own food science experiment. Now it's your turn to create.
So just kind of having those distinct transition words as you're moving between the PowerPoint and the video content, I think also works well. So as you can see here, like the other one, I sort of made like a little animation to show different elements of what we were talking about, which I'll show you in a bit. But yeah, the primary way that I edit my videos is I take my big chunk of film, like it's normally like half an hour long, and then I cut it up into little pieces that I want to keep and delete everything that I don't. So normally everything takes me multiple takes. I just delete everything that I don't, and then I reorder all the blocks. And in Final Cut Pro, you can just do that by dragging and dropping, and I'm pretty sure the same is true for other softwares as well. The next step is I decide where I want to add text. So then I go through and I just like add little text boxes anywhere that I want text in my video. And then I watch it over again to see where I could also add images as well. And so that's where I have these images that I overlaid. And once all of that's done, I decide if I need animations to kind of back up what I'm saying even further. And that's where I would go in and create these animations, which I'll show you how I do it in a second. Yeah, that's sort of the idea of how I do it. Are there any questions kind of while I'm in Final Cut Pro about anything like that? And another point is I use an audio library on YouTube. So there's a free music library, and that's kind of where I get the music that goes behind all of my videos as well. So before I jump to the animations, any questions on this part? I'll take that as a no. Okay, I'll continue onwards then. Awesome, cool. All right, so the next thing I wanted to show you was how I animate. And I know that animation, like traditionally, is like you go to like a software where you can like move each object screen by screen. And I tried that, and it is a lot of work. And so kudos to anybody who knows how to use that kind of software, but I just have never had the capacity to learn it. I really want to learn like software like After Effects or anything like that, but I just haven't had the time. But what I do know how to use is PowerPoint or Keynote. And so that's how I actually animate everything. I draw all my images in Adobe Illustrator, just shape by shape. And there's lots of really good tutorials online. So if you are interested in learning how to use Illustrator, you can just let me know in the chat and I'll throw in some tutorials as well. But basically what I do is I go into Keynote, which is the Mac equivalent of PowerPoint. And I drop in all my illustrations. So let me just make this larger. Okay. So yeah, I just wanted to show you sort of how I come up with the animations and then also how I make them happen. So you saw earlier in that video with the eggs that I had that drop down animation where it was like a little song and then it was like boop, 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 boop for all the letters of STEAM. So the way that I did that was actually I just have my photo of the Flavorful Science logo. I added the keyboard effect to this text to have it sort of look like it was appearing. And then I just had each of these move in using the downward built-in tool on the side there. And the trick is, I mean, I don't know if it looks like it's been PowerPoint animated, but what I like to do is I like to retime my videos to just make sure that it matches sort of the music or matches what I'm saying afterwards. And I think that makes it look a lot more polished and less like it was animated in PowerPoint. So I'll just show you what it looks like. So, and then I would screen record this, and while it was playing the music, so it kind of goes like do-do-do-do, do-do-do-do, do-do-do. Then each like downward beat, I would like have one of these drop, and I'm just cueing it by pressing my space bar and screen recording. Yeah, so I think it looks like it wasn't done in PowerPoint. Maybe it doesn't. You can tell me I'm wrong, but that's how I do my animations there. And then for the explanation parts of my video, it's very similar. I kind of just utilize the different features that PowerPoint has. So there's like spinning tools, wipe in tools, all sorts, but all the illustrations I do in Illustrator just so it looks like in a cartoony style. I mean, if you want to use a different style, I'm sure you could find a way to make that work for you in PowerPoint as well. But the trick is to think about kind of what tools PowerPoint has that you could use and take over in a way to make your animations come to life. So for example, here, like I have my text coming in, and then I also have my like spinning to represent the action that I wanted to come across, and then all the arrows wipe in as well. And I just see that there's a message in the chat. I'm just gonna pull it up quickly. Yeah, so I think that this is, I mean, obviously if you're working on more advanced video projects, it might not be enough for you, but I've never actually animated anywhere else, and I found that Keynote is like simple, it works. That's kind of where I've always come from, and a lot of people in the sciences I think have experience making presentations in PowerPoints, so it's a good way to utilize that skill that you already have in the sciences and just kind of translate it into a new use for the software. The other thing that you can see that I do is I have these borders on the outsides of my videos, and those are just like rectangles that you can draw with a shape tool. And it just allows me to have like a consistent look throughout my video. So one video will be maybe like teal colored all the way through, and the other one will be red. This was to match the different colors of each letter of the word STEAM, because I did one video on science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. But you could also use it just in any individual video as well. It just makes it look a little bit more professional, maybe. No, thanks. So yeah, that's kind of how I do my animations and also my filming. And yeah, like I mentioned, with my phone, it's the primary place where I film my actual in-person videos. And there's a really good, I think it's pretty cheap, stand that you can get on Amazon where you just, or I'm sure at any other tech store, where you just attach your phone to this like little, like, I guess like selfie stick attachment. And then you can attach it to a tripod, and it makes it as functional as a professional camera, because you can attach it to a tripod and then do all the stuff that you'd normally do. So I think I have like a $15 tripod, and the attachment was probably $10, and I just set it up like this, and that's how I can film my overhead shots, or like that to film myself. Another good thing that I've actually been doing recently is I was working on some collaborative projects at my job over at GNBC. And because of everything being online, I wasn't able to meet them in person to film them, but I actually just filmed them over Zoom, and then cut out and like cropped the video so it didn't look like it was filmed in Zoom. But it still like gave the impression that we were having an interview. Obviously, I mean, we had different backgrounds and everything like this. Yeah, so you could use like all sorts of different kinds of cameras. I think that there's an impression that you need like sort of expensive equipment and technology in order to start making videos. But I think like it's always nice, of course, to have the best kind of tech. A document camera, I think that's, I'm not sure exactly what you have, Sherry, but is that the type that just like kind of bends over?
Yeah, it has a long gooseneck, and it's good for lots of different things. Good for presentations, good for putting things up on the whiteboard, or the whiteboard if you were trying to, all sorts of different applications. So if you were a scientist having to make presentations, or a student, you probably would want one anyway.
Yeah. I used to use document camera, but I think I broke it along the way somehow, and it doesn't work anymore, or somehow it's no longer compatible with my computer. But yeah, there's lots of different options. But I think that when you look up like video production equipment, you always see these like really expensive DSLR cameras, or super expensive tripods, or like stabilizing cameras. But honestly, I think that you can start making videos on like a pretty low budget. And yeah, you don't really need all that fancy technology and equipment, and you can do a lot of the animations yourself, sort of using these like PowerPoint hacks and everything like that as well. So I guess, are there any more questions on how I make my videos before I move into like the do's and don'ts of videos? And also, if there's anything that I'm not explaining clearly enough, just let me know as well.
I think we're so engrossed, Ella. You can just like go on, and we can be here for days. Go ahead.
Well, I'm glad. I hope it's interesting. Yeah. Oh, do I use Illustrator? Yes, I did. And the way I drew my logo, let's see if I actually have the file. I think I do. Let's see if I can pull it up. I don't think I can pull it up right now. But yeah, so the idea of using Illustrator and PowerPoint wasn't like something that I think is like a strategy that people suggest. It was sort of just the two pieces of technology I knew how to use, and I was like, I'm just going to combine them because this is all I know. But yeah, this is my logo. It's not in Illustrator right now, but as you can see, it's just a font that I typed out. I deleted the I, and then I just used Illustrator to kind of use lines to draw a little DNA and then a little microscope. So it's not that complicated, but I think it conveys what my brand is pretty effectively. And so yeah, there's lots of different ways, and I think that I mean, especially when you're looking at the logos that I have had over time, they're not really that professional looking. It was just sort of what I was doing at the time and what I was interested in. And I think it's important that you kind of put yourself out there, even if you're not like 100% confident in your final product, because I mean, it's not the most polished videos, especially my old ones, and even my new ones, they're not amazing quality. They're just sort of what I can do right now. And I think at least a lot of the people that I've talked to they've been like they've held off on making videos just because they felt like they couldn't make it as good as like production companies could have. And I think that, yeah, I mean, you have to be honest, you're not going to have the same like final polished quality as like a company that has, I don't know, like a $2,000 budget for a video, but you're still able to communicate your message. And I think that's what's most important in science communication. It's not how your video looks, but sort of how you present your information. Which brings me to my next component of my presentation. Oh, yeah, if there's any like specific things that you want to learn how to do in PowerPoint, I've like thought of different ways to do a whole bunch of stuff. Like you can have an image of like a beaker pouring over by having like a image that you've just cut out like the beaker in, and then having a solid background in the background and then rotating it. So there's lots of like weird things you can do to sort of get different effects using PowerPoint. You can always email me to follow up if you're ever stuck because I've come into like I've done quite a few different animations on PowerPoint, which is yeah, kind of interesting. I don't know. It's a different skill. But yeah, I will just continue with my presentation quickly. I'll just pull that. Yeah. So now I'm just going to get into sort of the do's and don'ts of video. And again, this is just what I've learned in my experience making YouTube videos. And again, I'm not professionally trained. It's just sort of what I have thought of over the many years, and also the difference between my older videos and my newer videos. This is what I thought made my videos a lot better. So the first thing is timing. I try to keep my videos like under 3 minutes, I think is ideal, but like 3 to 5 minutes is sort of the range of most of the videos on my channel, just because I don't know about you, but I'm like online all the time with university now, and I just can't really, I don't have the attention span to watch things that are like 10, 15 minutes long explaining one concept. So I think that having multiple smaller videos to explain complex concepts is more effective than having one really drawn out video. I know this kind of goes against like YouTube's algorithm, but I'm sure all of you seem like you're using your videos for another purpose. I think it's better to have like little chunks than a big long video. Alternatively, you could have one video that you could break up into chunks, which I'll explain in a bit. But yeah, the other thing is having clear objectives and sections in the video. So what I like to do is at the beginning, I say, this is what we're going to learn, and we're going to connect this to this. For example, with the egg video, it was like, we're going to learn how to make eggs and connect it to the centripetal force. And then the other thing is to speak clearly and say less. And I know right now I'm a little bit rambling, but I think this is something that I'm trying to work on, is to try and achieve my message in simple words with fewer words as well. Just especially because my content is aimed towards children. I think that like while it would be interesting to use big words and like complicated words, I think that you can often get your same message across with fewer and more simple words. So yeah, that's my timing tips. My next tips are to have structure. So I think that especially with online education, it can be difficult to follow if you don't have a set kind of flow that you're going to take them through in the video. So this is why I always have kind of these definite sections throughout my video to ensure that everybody understands what I'm saying when I'm saying it. So I start my videos with an intro, like into what the project will be, and then I say, here's the materials, and then I have the list of materials, and then I say, here's how we're going to do it, and then I show them how to do it, and then I say, let's explain why. So there's kind of these points that break up the video as well, so it helps the timing, but it also provides a structure so that someone can jump to a specific section as well and just show that section and then maybe do the experiment. So there's lots of different things that you can do if you do break up your video into these sections as well. The other interesting thing is I've had feedback from teachers saying that they can show one segment of the video and then allow their class to do it and then show the next and then kind of use it in a multi-step process. And so I guess if you wanted to have a larger video, you could also break it up like that as well. And my third thing is to have visuals. So like I mentioned before, I like to have the videos be interactive instead of just being a presentation. And I know this is a presentation right now, but hopefully you feel like this is an interactive experience. But the idea is that you want to combine as many elements as you can. So having audio, having visuals, and having text, I think will really bring whatever you're talking about to light and make it more interesting as well. I know that sometimes we think the text is like a bad thing when it comes to presentations, but I think with video, and if it's just a video of you talking, just having the words popping up is also really useful so they know what's important and what to focus on, especially if it's an educational thing and they're trying to take notes. Okay, so that leads me to my video checklist. So these are kind of the things that I like to include in my videos, and my videos are all like experiment-based. So this might be something that you could adapt towards whatever you are working on. And yeah, if you write in the chat sort of what kind of projects that you want to do, if they're not like experiments, then maybe we can work on coming up with a different structure that fits you. But I normally have a thumbnail that I develop, which is kind of that bordered look. That's my consistent branding. And then I use the same intro slide as my thumbnail, just so that they know when they click the video that it's still the same video. The other thing I like to do is having that little introduction, like I showed you how I made the one for the Flavorful Summer of STEAM series, just so that they know kind of what to expect of you, that this is the same brand that they've been watching before. Then I have my materials section, my steps section, my explanation section, and where to go next. So I like to leave at the end like a space for the students to kind of explore a new topic. So I'll link it to another video or suggest kind of an extension to the project that they were already working on. And as for video editing software, I already mentioned all of these, but my recommendations would be Final Cut Pro, but I understand that there's a cost associated with it. So there's also iMovie, which comes free with all Mac devices, and Premiere Pro, which is an Adobe product, which is also a cost as well. But these are just my recommendations. But again, I primarily use Final Cut Pro. I got it years and years and years ago on some deal. So I have just kind of been sticking with it ever since. But there are different options as well. Yeah, so I thought that this would be a good time to break it up into a question and answer before I go into the activity that's kind of making you guys do something. So if there's anything I haven't addressed so far, just let me know now. I'm happy to chat.